Welcome back to Go to the Grass. If this is the first time you're visiting this channel and you're wondering what the hell's going on, yeah, medical cannabis is legal in the UK for a wide array of conditions, prescribed in an array of different products, including flower. But you can go to my other videos to find out more about that. Now, to point out something obvious for the long-time viewers of the channel, I've talked to death the situation with CanCard a number of times. To just cut an entirely long story short, I believe it's a scam.
Well, no shit.
Now, some of the reasons why will relate in this video, and we'll get to that, but this is not a sequel to that CanCard series. I did have an entire script laid out for that video. It was going to be Star Wars themed. I'd got lightsabers, everything. Maybe that'll still come, maybe it won't, but this is far too important of a subject to be wasting any time on. And before I get into all this, a quick disclaimer. Yes, I think it's wholly ridiculous that anyone be criminalized for being in possession of a flower, especially not those who need it for medical reasons.
You don't want to die of cold.
Yeah, where were you when the Felix Fairy was handing out all her feelings?
It contains a photo ID of the patient. It also contains their information.
Patient ID card, a medical ID card, a medical cannabis card, patient card. What else are they called? They've got many different names for them. But what it is a form of identification that claims to be that added protection for someone who is in possession of cannabis for medical reasons. Now, CanCard, we've been over, but is different to a lot of the ones I'm going to talk about today because primarily you don't need to have a prescription in order to get a CanCard. You just have to prove to a private company that doesn't employ any medical specialist to assess that by CanCard's account you could be eligible for a prescription. What we're talking about today is a little different in the sense that a lot of the cards that are cropping up recently are coming from clinics or I don't even know. And so with being a medical cannabis patient, there is still a ton of stigma, a ton of misinformation, and just a ton of ignorance. The UK police force. While I celebrate where some police forces have educated themselves, have accepted education from others to understand the laws, they should be properly assessing a valid patient or whether or not to use their discretion. But unfortunately, when the laws were changed, there was nothing done to educate the police forces at large, which is just seemingly unheard of in any other country. To not inform your police force and by extension the public that what once was a controlled drug that could not be obtained through prescription could be in possession legally was not communicated, which you would think was the responsible thing to do. But no, we have been left for the past 6 years in a field of ambiguity and uncertainty and insecurity. Now, of course, patient numbers have apparently exploded in the past year or so. So, of course, perhaps they didn't expect this to become as big as it is now. But regardless, it has left patients fending for themselves, for their own rights, and having to defend ourselves to police. No, officer, believe me, it's not a scam. They're a real doctor. We patients, some of the most vulnerable in our society, under duress of the threat of criminality, are thrusted into a marketplace for a personally life-saving medicine that a lot still can't afford.
Drugs.
Oh, here we go.
Marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it. Take care of labor.
Andrew now carries a CanCard.
Right, this is where the industry comes in. I could sit here and tell you about all the different companies, clinics, whoever, they're bringing out different cards, have yet to bring out cards, have brought out cards, and whatever else. In my videos about CanCard, I probably said something along the lines of, well, they're not a clinic, they don't have any authority. So you probably sat there with your smug face going, hey, got in the grass. Some of these guys are clinics. That means they should have medical professionals that are there qualified to assess your medical prescription. And that's true. In some instances, there is a doctor who would assess you like you would at any other clinic for whether or not you're eligible for medical cannabis. That's fine, not a problem. It doesn't matter because this video is not about whether or not I believe these cards are a scam. The question on the title of this video is, should you buy a medical ID? Should you buy a medical cannabis ID card? And the reason why this question will undoubtedly come up for a lot of new patients coming into this space, the same reason why I purchased a CanCard, because I have anxiety.
Actually, Megan, I can't sit anywhere. I have general anxiety disorder.
I am terrified of having interaction, negative or positive, with a police officer. I purchased a card because I was given the impression that it would alleviate any need for me to provide much verbal response to an officer, provide any sort of explanation for why I'm in possession of cannabis. I could hand over this card and say, scan this ID, sir, or madam, whatever, officer, and you will see clear as day that you do not need to search me and that we do not need to have a conversation today. That is why I bought a card. That is why these cards appeal to patients. That is why this conversation is not going to be a demonization of patients, because you are completely just in having those feelings right now.
The weed turned me gay.
The reason that medical cannabis does not have as many licensed treatments is because Big Pharma have not invested.
I feel that some members of the industry have taken advantage or potentially exploited those fears, are exploiting that feeling of insecurity, are exploiting that lack of education and understanding from our officers. The landscape that patients currently face, in which we are criminalized for something we are legally prescribed, not too dissimilar any number of other controlled substances. And just to help put some new patients' mind at ease, I've been prescribed this medicine for 2 years. Thankfully, haven't had any encounters with the police. Now look, if you're a card holder of one of these places and you're sat there yelling at the monitor, hey, I don't feel exploited, I know what this card is, I know what it does. The police saw my card and the police accepted my card as valid and let me go on my way. Fantastic! I do not want anyone, card holding, patient, not patient, whoever, to be charged criminally for this medicine. Full stop. Again, this is not a demonization of patients or anyone who chose to buy one of these cards. The problem arises is when a patient is not in possession of one of these cards. There are many patients from many different clinics, and there is never going to be a situation in which all clinics agree to individually distribute their own cards. So that leaves a number of patients without any sort of medical ID card in which the clinic, company, whoever purports is accepted by the police and is valid and will provide that assurance. There have been instances in which patients who do not have these cards have been stopped by the police, and the police have been under the misinformation that the card itself is an indication of a valid prescription. As it stands, no card is recognized by the Home Office, the Department of Health and Social Care. They don't accept this. The guidance is that you must be in possession of your prescription or dispensing label with valid ID. The issue is when a patient such as myself is only in possession of what is required upon me. If an officer accepts your card and is under the impression that I must present one too, that puts me in jeopardy, because then I have to further explain to an officer that has been put under the wrong impression that a card should supersede legal, valid prescription. I've spoken to many of these companies. I've not seen any assurance to believe that they're educating the police any better than CanCard did. These cards aim to fill in the gaps for the ignorance of our police force without educating them, thus confusing matters further. Every time I've spoken to these industry members, I've asked them where the patient consensus was for issuing these cards. I've never been given a satisfactory answer, and in some cases where I filmed these interviews with industry members, they withdrew consent for them to be shown in this video. Again, this video is not a demonization of patients. I'm asking the industry to talk to patients, to get the real consensus from patients, because from my perspective, all this appears to be is a marketing gimmick. We know you have large investment. We know you're trying to drive patients to your service. Doing this harms the people that you proclaim to be trying to protect. Only offering this select few by exclusivity or limited availability, you risk jeopardizing other patients who are not card holders, but who are still abiding by the law and the official guidance set. I should not need to subscribe to a service, sign up to an app, pay for a card, provide information information of any sort when I am already legally protected by the piece of paper written on by my doctor. This industry is already at times inaccessible to some who need this medication. While I appreciate your good intentions and that you may offer services beyond just these cards, I ask you and urge you to consider if you are doing more harm than good, if you are putting profit above the patients. Because you need to remember who funds this industry. You need to remember who makes this industry so profitable. You need to remember that patients will not simply be complicit in every decision made. Patients, I'm asking you to voice your opinions on the matter, that ultimately with your wallet you decide what happens in this industry. If the industry are asking what patients want, I'm telling you now, transparency, affordability, quality, consistency and variety, clinics and pharmacies that are patient focused and put standards for patients' rights, proper infrastructure and legal protection for their patients. And what else? Just ask them. Build upon trust with patients. Understand what their needs are. Don't produce marketing gimmicks to increase your numbers while potentially putting thousands of other patients at risk. That was a difficult one. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it's a bit different from what I've done in a while. And while I'd love to give you more fireworks and special effects and bangity bangity bangs, there just are some serious issues that need addressing for medical cannabis patients. I recognize there are so many groups and organizations and people out there who are advocating for greater access, for change, who are trying to put the patient's interests in mind first. I just want to appeal to those who may think very differently on this subject to me. We might differ on certain issues, but if we've got a common goal in mind, let's talk. Let's not fight and let's work together to get that goal accomplished. And mine is greater access to cannabis. Thank you to everyone who subscribes to the channel. The support has been incredible these past couple of months. And thank you so much to everyone who clicks the join button down below to enable that Pokemon addiction. Leave those thoughts down below. Remember to keep it respectful. Remember to love yourself. Have a great day. And I'll see you next time.